Okay, very informally, I'd like to take you through the software process using Excel sheets and so forth for the using National Board for Professional Teaching Standards as an evaluation tool for teachers. Basically, our first form here is the final rating form that typically the evaluator and the teacher would sign off on. Just as we do traditionally. We're using math as an example here, so this is the summary rating form for teachers mathematics standards. And as you can see, across the left side, okay, are the 10 standards for mathematics, okay, and across the top are the levels of evaluation that a teacher would end up with. This is a self-populating area right here, taken from other scoring sheets, as we'll see in a moment. But basically, it's emerging, basic, proficient, and accomplished, and it comes from mathematical formulas. This X here in accomplished basically comes from the scoring sheet table 1, D3, and it's between 90 and 100%. Receive accomplished. And proficient, of course, is between, let's go to proficient, it looks like it's between 80 and 90%, and basic is between 70 and 79%, and emerging is 69% or lower, probably for newer teachers and so forth. Again, there's not much you could do here. It's self-populating, except at the bottom, since this is a final rating sheet that you share with the teacher. You could put your comments right here and your recommendations of improvement here, and then a sign-off area will be incorporated down here somewhere. Okay, so the scoring sheet table 1, this is where the all of the mathematics really takes place, all the calculations and tabulations. You can see again your standards are on the left side. Possible points for each standard is put in there by myself, and then the earned points is what self-populates in this case. So if you try to put something in there, you really couldn't do it at that point. So anyway, they come from certain places. So this is the mathematical average over here. For the tally down at the bottom. So an 8 out of an 8, of course, is 100. So it's your earned points divided by your possible points. So in this case, an 88%. Okay. So these are the numbers that kind of show up over in your first sheet here. So the average would be to the right. So accomplished in that particular one, standard 2 knowledge of mathematics is an accomplished score right there. Okay, and at the bottom is the totality of all of the standards together, the average of all the standards together. It's either the average of this column or it's the total points available divided into the score, the actual points that the teacher received, and that's what ends up in these X's right over here. Okay, so that being said, we can move on to each standard. So sheet 1 aligns with standard 1, okay, and that would be commitment to mathematics, learning for all students. And all an evaluator or teacher would have to do at this point is kind of click on a box, okay, and as you can see, the tally over here aligns with how many boxes are checked. So if a box is unchecked, it's worth a 0. If the box is checked, it's worth a 1. And the total is at the bottom. Okay, so this is line 51, okay, sheet 1. So you can see that here, that this score here ends up being sheet 1, line 51. Okay, like so. Okay, so on score sheet 1, it was a 6. So that kind of ends up being a 75%, which is on your final tab. And score sheet 2, you can see that that's a total of 8. Certainly we can make that 7, but in the end, it tabulates here, in this scoring sheet table 1, and you end up with an 88% over in that column. Okay. Another nice feature about the score sheets is it gives you all of the elements that you check off or don't check off, and then the evaluator or the teacher can toggle between this sheet and the actual sheet that has evidence and examples. So here's an example sheet for an evidence sheet for standard 1. Teacher has used ability surveys, learning style surveys, researchers' cultural backgrounds, used an interest survey, and so forth. So it's easy to then toggle back to the original score sheet by clicking on that box and then checking the box that applies to that piece of evidence or that example. Not all inclusive, but a lot of the examples and evidences are there. And it sort of goes right up. Score sheet 2 is basically aligns with standard 2. Okay, all the way up to score sheet 9. Okay, and in this particular instance, they got an 8 out of an 8 example. You can certainly change that to a 7 out of 8. That again has evidence and examples that you could toggle back and forth between. But ultimately, everything ends up, number 1 at the scoring sheet, table 1 here for this score, and the percentages, and then the average percentage taken at the bottom. And this percentage right here is what ends up being taken over to the final column for each, the overall rating for that teacher. So the average of these, it becomes an overall rating of proficient. So the teacher got 1, it looks like he got 1 accomplished, and many proficients. So mathematically it works out. He has 2 basics, so mathematically it works out to be an average overall rating of a proficient score. So there's nothing really to do here. It self-populates. So the other thing you're basically doing, you're writing comments in, recommendations for improvement, and you and the teacher are both signing off on this particular form. Okay, and you're just going in and clicking on various boxes that are appropriate for that teacher. You're toggling between samples and then back to the actual score sheet and so forth, and that's really it. I hope you take advantage of the next sheet to try it for yourself. It's on one of the web pages where you can see try the software yourself, and you'll see it's very user friendly. Okay, thank you.